tells you he's going to take a quarterback. He's going to make his mark, right? And you know what?
You got to
I'll
keep
just
your
say,
boss happy, don't you?
right.
Like if Robert Kraft's sitting there at over 80 years old and like he says at the owners' meetings just a few weeks ago, I really hope we come away with a top rate young quarterback. All right, well, if you want that gig, Eliot, like you're gonna tell him no. You're gonna say like, I know what you want, Robert. I know what you really need. Watch this, and trades down for a half dozen picks. Like I don't know. That would take a lot of chutzpah to be able to pull that off.
Well, here's what I think Eliot Wolf gets to. Like he's looking at the AFC, he sees Josh Allen, he sees Joe Burrow, he sees Patrick Mahomes, he sees CJ Stroud, he sees Lamar Jackson. Dudes, like you've got to deal with all of these quarterbacks, all of these offenses. And when I think about Eliot and the way he carries himself, he's got confidence. He's got some swagger. He's unafraid. It just screams Drake Maye. It just screams Drake Maye. I mean, that is Drake. There's some risk involved. I'm sure you've probably thought about and talked about Drake Maye, triple the amount than anybody really should by now. But that's him, right? Like here is somebody, I didn't mention Justin Herbert. He's kind of like a Herbert, big, strong arm, mobile, not necessarily accurate. It wasn't necessarily pretty last year, but man, if you hit on Drake Maye, you can all of a sudden go toe to toe with these quarterbacks, maybe 2-3 years from now. I just it's a gut feeling more than anything. I feel like Eliot Wolf would draft Drake Maye if he was there, unless that offer is obscene and he's got the security that he is the GM long term and he really does want to build out a roster and take some time here. It makes sense because I know every GM says this, every coach says this when they draft a quarterback that he's going to sit and he ends up playing by week 4. In this situation, it would be good for him to sit for X amount of weeks, if not the whole season. All of the greats have sat. I mean, Mahomes, Rodgers, it just pays to sit if you're not polished, and he is not polished. So, right, send Jacoby out to the Wolves for a year, get better. Poor Jacoby, man. He's
Sorry,
been in some rough
Jacoby.
spots.
Great
There you
dude.
go. There you go. Have at it. Have at it, man. Win us
But
3 or 4 games, and then
I'm with
build
you,
out the
Ty.
roster around Drake. Man.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if I had to put money on it today, gun to my head, who are they taking at 3? And they're not trading out, I would say Drake Maye for all the reasons you mentioned. He checks a lot of the boxes. We go through every year, we do what we call our prototypical Patriots series, which was sort of cut and dried for a long, long time because Bill was running the draft. And so for many, many years, we knew what Bill wanted at receiver, even if it didn't work out. We knew what Bill wanted at quarterback, at guard, at tackle, defensive tackle, et cetera, et cetera. And so we had these prototypes at every single position. We go through, who was available in the draft and we lay them all out in our series. And this year it's been a little different because now we're working off of this Ron Wolf executive tree, at least on the offensive side. I think defensively, because Mayo is going to be running it, DeMarcus Covington, who's a Belichick guy, they're going to be looking for some of the same things. But offensively, now we're working off this Packers model. And it has been interesting to me to go back and look at all the first and second round quarterbacks. There's not that many, quite honestly. First and second round quarterbacks, obviously, they hit big with Favre and Rodgers. But Jordan Love, Scott McLuhan drafts Alex Smith 1 overall back in the day. Reggie McKenzie drafts Derek Carr in the second round. Brian Braum is somewhere in there as a second round pick of the Packers. So not all hits, but a lot of hits. Patrick Mahomes for John Dorsey, it's as big as it gets in terms of hits. Baker Mayfield is sort of the one outlier in terms of size, Ty, but he does have this thing that Packers people have tended to seemingly value, which is the ability to throw on the move. All of those guys I just mentioned can create a little bit outside of structure. And I would say with Baker, just going back, talking to some people, but also just going back and looking at the reporting and watching Eliot Wolf in a press conference in 2018 after day 2 of the draft, and he's being asked about Baker and his role in the evaluation of Baker Mayfield for the Browns that year. He just absolutely fell in love with the intangibles for Baker and the confidence and the winning quotient that he brought to Oklahoma. And I wonder if he sees any of that in J.J. McCarthy. who's won more than JJ McCarthy? And everything you hear about JJ McCarthy is not only is he smart, but he's an alpha. He was the leader of that team that had all those great players that sent, it felt like 24 people to the combine a couple months ago. And even if the number of like the volume of work as a passer isn't on tape the way it is for Caleb Williams or Drake Maye or Jaden Daniels, boy, you watch him on 3rd and long, and he might be the most efficient of all 4